All right. Hey, everyone. Happy Monday. It's always great to see you guys. So glad you're here. Okay, so tonight we are going to definitely have some conversation. So besides Victoria, who has no voice, I'm going to ask you guys to be unmuting and sharing and just hearing your thoughts, because we are going to talk a little bit about failure, which is always like a really fun topic, right? Everyone's like, yeah, I love talking about failing. Like, no, not so much. But let me ask you guys this. You've heard of like pain tolerance, right? Like you can have a high pain tolerance, you can have a low pain tolerance. Who here feels like they have a pretty good pain tolerance? I'm seeing some yes. Okay, some yeses and some nos. Yeah. Okay. So who's like, no, definitely not. Bad pain tolerance, cannot even handle it. Okay. Audrey, mom, good. Okay. So we kind of know, we can kind of gauge, right? Like, yes, I'm pretty hardy. I can take some pain, or like, no, I'm definitely not. So it depends. I had babies. Yes. So if you've had babies, you can gauge your pain tolerance, right? That's like a very clear, like, okay, I could handle it or I couldn't. And guys, there is no judgment either way, but there's just different kinds of people, right? How much pain you can handle. So a slight twist on that. What is your tolerance to failure? And you can unmute, like, let's chat. How do you feel like you handle failing at something? What are your thoughts when, yeah, it depends what it is. So try to think of something that you have failed at. Anyone have an example?
I have failed at so many things. I praise the Lord that I am still standing here. So I guess I must have some pretty good, strong tolerance for failure.
Yeah, keep getting back up, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the whole point, not staying there. Try different things, move around, try different thoughts, ask different questions, refer to different people,
Yeah, right. Anybody else? Okay, Victoria's saying in the chat, some things you can have a lot of shame around. Like if you fail, you can feel ashamed. Anyone have an example, like something you tried and it just bombed? Or
Okay,
maybe,
so
go ahead, Nicole.
I don't know if it's like you find a distraction too, right? So once you failed, you hide behind something to take the focus off of that. So it's more or less like a cover up, and then you move on to the next thing and just hope people didn't know or see the failure.
Okay, so there's something even harder about like public failure, right? Like if you put something out there for the world to see and then you fail, that's like, does that feel a lot worse, like a lot harder for people? Like if it's just you and no one else really knows, no big deal. But if it's out there for the world to see, then yeah. Okay, so Victoria said define failure. So I would define failure as like going for something or setting a goal and then it doesn't happen, right? Which we really need to redefine it, right? Is that even failure? And we're going to get into that. But as we look at, what is this, you guys? Who knows what this is?
The comp plan.
The comp plan, right? Compensation plan, right? Okay, this is the compensation plan. Not that you need to see it. I know you know what it is. And we have these different categories, right? Like our different ranks. Start at silver, work your way through. This is a discomfort scale. I want you to think about this as a discomfort scale, okay? So you start here, and in order to get to silver, you have to experience a certain amount of discomfort, right? Putting yourself out there, talking to people about plexus, like it can feel really uncomfortable right out of the gate. Each time we move across this compensation plan, we are literally hitting the next level of discomfort. And that might sound like, oh my gosh, that sounds terrible. But the beautiful thing about your comfort zone is you can grow it, right? Like you can actually stretch and grow and expand your comfort zone so that the things that felt really terrifying don't feel terrifying as much after you do them and you get comfortable. But the compensation plan, if you think about it as a discomfort scale, it means that each step you go, you're going to have to get a little uncomfortable. You're going to have to push yourself out of your comfort zone. And when we get stuck it's like we're hitting our heads against that discomfort that we don't want to face, right? And I'm just like owning this for myself. The reason I'm not at Sapphire yet is because I haven't been willing to push my comfort zone to do the Sapphire things, right? Like I just can own that and say like, yes, I know there's things that I need to do to get to that next level that feel really uncomfortable. And so I'm like butting up my head against them. For me personally, and I'm going to ask you guys to think through this too. I know that in order to get to that next level, I need to commit to more in-person events, and they're really hard for me. Like you may not know it, but I am super introverted. And with Zoom, it's easy because I love you guys and we can talk, and then I shut it off and I go do something else. But in person is different, right? Like it requires a lot of energy. And so for me, that's really uncomfortable. For you, that might be like the easiest thing ever. But everybody has that area where it's like, man, I know this is where I need to spend more time or how I need to push it into that next level. And I'm just butting my head against it. For me, it's also leading with the business, like presenting the business opportunity to people and leading with that right out of the gate. I know I need to do more of that to get to the next level, but I'm butting my head up against it. So I would love to hear from you guys. What discomfort do you feel like you're avoiding that's keeping you from getting to that next level?
What if there's a
Talking.
laundry list of things?
There's a laundry list. Okay, well, give me a few or give me one.
It's the leadership part of it. When you feel like, you're trying to really grow for your team, but yet you may not be getting back. I don't want to say getting back what you're putting in, but you may not feel like you're showing up in the best way for them still, even though you've already grown so much. And then so there's kind of like that battle of continuing to grow and trying to show up differently, but that just, it's tugs at you. You're like, oh, but I could go do something else.
Right. So then distraction's always there, right? Because your brain is like, oh, just stay safe, go do the laundry, go do something else because this like is too uncomfortable. Yeah. Victoria said having tough conversations, accountability, right? So some of those leadership things, right? Like as you're growing, maybe recruitment felt like super comfortable to you, but now it's like, all right, now I have to like talk about duplication with people. And I know to keep growing, I need to develop silvers and golds. And like, that makes me a leader. That feels really uncomfortable, right? Anybody there? Like the duplication piece feels uncomfortable. Okay. What else? I want to hear from you guys. Thank you Nicole, for sharing. Yeah, go ahead, Abby.
For me, it's like you said, recruiting was super easy for me in the beginning. And it was just, everyone was so interested. And then they stopped being interested. And I was like, oh, what did I do? What am I doing wrong? And you kind of pull yourself down. But for me, it's once I share it with somebody like, and you can even expand this and you can get your products paid for. And I'm super excited about it. And I try and share that way. And then just keeping on getting rejected is like, okay, what am I doing wrong? Like, so it kind of puts you in like no one wants to do this with me. And then when I did get somebody, who was super excited and I tried to be there, I feel like maybe I pushed her away or maybe it was too much. And how could I have helped her, to be, so it's kind of like a scare for me to keep asking and asking and asking when I keep hearing no.
Right. Yeah. So like, how many times do I want to put myself out there, right? And possibly be rejected.
Right.
And then maybe, just having some self-doubt around like, well, if I wasn't able to help the one person be successful, can I help anybody be successful? Right. Like, exactly. And I've felt that too. And one thing I'll encourage you with is, I'll just give you kind of the flip scenario. What if you recruited someone and you talked to them about the business and they took off with it and they soared to diamond, right? And they were just a rock star. Would you say that was all me? I'm the reason she was so successful.
Right.
You wouldn't take ownership for her success, right? You would be like, she is awesome. She did all the things. In the same way, when someone is not, and they're not willing to do the things and they quit, that's not all your fault. But we're so,
that's definitely I feel like maybe it's not just me, maybe a lot of people feel this way. And it's like, you hear no so many times, but how many times do you keep questioning that for the same person?
Mhm.
So they might have said no before I did, Nicole can say
Right.
that for sure. I said no, but how many times do you keep asking? And then I have customers too that are like, now I don't want to do this at all, so it's like, I don't know. I guess that's just something that kind of stops me, is I don't want to push too hard and then have them not want anything to do with me or the product. So
Right. Yeah. I think you have to feel that out for that individual and your relationship. And, I continually like put it back to people like, hey, if anything changes, like I'm your girl, or if because people go through different seasons, and when they're pushing something away right now, it may be for them in the future. But I think the most important part is not being emotionally attached to someone else's decision, right? Like if someone, even if they say no to Plexus, it's not a no to you, or it's not Abby's doing a bad job. One of the examples I love is like a waitress going around with coffee, right? Like you're at a diner and she's like, do you want coffee? If someone says no, thanks, she's not like, oh my gosh, they rejected me. They don't want my coffee. Like, I'm going to go cry, right? No, she's like, okay, like that's fine. Coffee's awesome. If you don't want coffee, that's okay. Like I'm going on to the next person. And it's almost the same thing. Like we have something awesome to offer, and I'm out there like offering it to everyone. Like, why wouldn't you want coffee right now? Like it's the best, right? But not everyone's going to say yes. But not that we're like, that we don't care or we don't circle back, but we're just not emotionally attached to someone else's response, right? It's just like, that is great. It's your decision. And if you do want coffee, like you can wave me down and like, I'll be right over with the coffee. Right? That analogy helps me just not be so like upset when people, it's not a rejection of you, right? They're just saying no, thanks, or it's not for me right now, or I did want it and now I changed my mind. It's okay. Yeah, Exactly What to Say by Phil Jones. Yes, really good book. I keep it literally in my desk drawer because I refer to it so much. But okay, any other examples? I'm going to talk a little bit more about failure, but I wanted to hear from you guys, like what discomfort are you avoiding that's keeping you from getting to that next level? Like if it comes immediately to mind, then you know what you need to do. Time commitment.
Okay, I'll try and talk. Don't laugh, but
Oh,
I just want to elaborate. So, like, I feel as though many of us have felt this before, where we work so hard. So, to get to the next level, we think we're going to have to work that much harder. And that's not necessarily the case. There, like we've said before, there are seasons of working a lot and running and sprinting and hustling, but then there's also seasons that you're not. So, like, just letting go of that assumption, I guess. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. I'm so sorry about your voice. Yeah. Okay. So assuming that if I keep growing, it's going to take more time. I'm going to have more work. Right. Yes. I definitely went through a season of feeling that way. And I can tell you, it just isn't true. It's just not. In fact, in a lot of ways, the opposite is true, because you have systems in place, right? And when you have systems in place, you don't have to be scrambling all the time. And also, if you're doing leadership development, which we talked about last week as one of those pillars, you are equipping people to run their own teams, right? So it's not like you have to be personally responsible for 3,000 people on your team. But that, yeah, if you're working really hard, and I'll tell you, I probably worked the hardest at like gold and senior gold. I really feel like those were the two ranks where I was working the hardest. And maybe just because it felt hard, because I was so in that discomfort zone, right? Like everything felt uncomfortable to me because I was new and I wasn't sure, and I was putting myself out there. And so I think as you grow in your comfort level too, things just feel easier because you're not sitting in hesitation. You're not second guessing yourself all the time. You're just like, I pushed through that already. Like if it feels really hard right now, it's probably that you are growing so much, like your personal growth is just on full force. And then as you keep growing through those things, like there is just a comfort that comes with it. But we always want to be failing. Like if you're not failing, you're not doing anything, right? Because when you put yourself out there, when you're in action, you're gonna fail. And that's kind of my whole point with this, is we really need to think of failure as part of the process, instead of failure is one outcome that I want to avoid, right? Like if I'm trying to avoid failure at all costs and I only want success, if I don't want failure ever, you will never do anything scary. You will never push yourself outside of your comfort zone into new things, because that fear of failure will be so strong that your brain won't let you go there, right? It's going to keep you safe. It's going to keep you stuck in this little bubble where I'm happy and everything's fine. So you won't fail, but you also won't succeed because you're not going to move. You're just going to be right there. But what if we thought about failure? What if we had a process orientation instead of a goal orientation, right? Instead of just thinking the goal is Ruby, the goal is Emerald, the goal is Diamond, or the goal is I've got to recruit 6 people this month. What if we just had a process orientation of here's the things that I know I need to do to push my comfort zone and get to the next level. And I know that failure is part of that process. And so when it comes and when I do something and it bombs and it's awful, and I feel like that was a huge failure, what if we're just like, yep, that's totally part of the process. I expected that, right? It just takes all the emotion and all of like the icky feeling and all the drama we have around failure. It just like diffuses it, right? Just to be like, of course I failed. I'm trying new things. Of course, right? Like having compassion on yourself. Yeah. Trusting the process. So instead of failure being a bad thing, what if we just think about it as a growth thing? Failure is not a bad thing. It's a growth thing. What if we normalized it? Like I would love for someone to hop in our chat and say, I tried something new today and it bombed. Like, what if we were like, Nicole, that's awesome. Like, good job trying something new. And now you know one way to not one way to not run a chat party because that didn't work, or one way to not something. Like, what if we actually celebrated and talked about failing and then it was just normal? Wouldn't that be cool? I think we should do that. It happens with cooking. Yes. Oh, that's such a good example, right? And there's like whole shows around like baking fails because it's funny. What, Mom?
No, baking. I've had so many baking fails.
Right. And it's funny, like we can laugh about it with baking, but for some reason, when it comes to our work, we get like really upset about it and like want to hide it. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a fail. I got so excited about the couples thing that starts tomorrow. And I was like reaching out to all these couples and everything. I did not have one person say, I want to do that. Like, tell me all about it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what we're doing, with Stephanie. And I did not have one person want to do it. And I'm still like shocked. Like, why wouldn't you want to do this?
Right.
But
Yeah.
I mean, that was like, I feel like that was a huge fail for me. Like, did I not recruit it enough? Did I not say the right thing? But nobody wanted to do it.
Right. But again, it's like the waitress with the coffee. You're all crazy. Why wouldn't you want coffee? Right? Like,
Yeah.
why wouldn't people want to do a couples challenge with you? Like, they're crazy. But yeah, I mean, it's a fail, right? Because it didn't get the result that you wanted, but it's also part of the process. Like, okay, if that didn't land, like maybe I need to pivot. Maybe it's, whatever. Like you can kind of see where, like, maybe you could do it different the next time, or maybe it's just the wrong time for people. Who knows? Sometimes things just, I'll host an event and no one comes. Has anyone had that? Like a sip and share and then like literally no one shows. I don't know. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But the point is you're in action. Like you're trying new things, you're reaching out. And maybe some of those couples, it's not the right time now, but maybe in 2 months, they're going to be like, we just realized it's almost summer and we both want to lose 10 pounds. Like, can we do it now? You never know. Like people are weird and their timing is weird sometimes. But yeah, I think we should celebrate the fact that you are helping with that and that you reached out to people, right? Like pushed your comfort zone. That's all, like failure is all part of the process. So I really want us to start sharing when something bombs, like when it's just bad, like, oh my goodness, I did this post and I didn't have a single comment. And like, we can be like, that's awesome, Shannon. Good job posting. Get the bomb gifs ready. Yes. Like, I think it's so healthy if we can laugh about it and like, just realize like not everyone's crushing it all the time. Like I think I put up like the magic post, right? And like not a single comment. I was like, well, that didn't work. Like, take that down. And what's challenging, guys, is what we do is really public. Like a lot of us are using social media and you're sharing your goals with your team or in our chats, or even putting your goals out there, like super scary. Like I'm going for gold this month, or I have a big goal to be emerald this year, right? Like we've seen people post that kind of stuff. That is really scary because you open the door for the possibility for failure when you share things publicly, right? Like it just throws it wide open, because if you're going to share a goal publicly, then if you fail, that's going to be public as well. And so I see a lot of people just keeping, like they're not even, they hold back from even trying because of that fear of failure, right? It's that fear of failure. It's a very unique business that we're in where everything is so public. But if we can learn to celebrate each other through failure because it's part of the process, then maybe we won't be so terrified to put big goals out there and to share them with each other. Because what I also know about putting big goals out there publicly is that it closes the back door for you. Like when you put on your Facebook page, I'm going for emerald this year, or whatever your big scary goal is, something happens in your brain where just the fact that you put it out there, it's like the back door closes. That you were like, well, if I don't say it, I can always run out that back door and I don't actually have to commit. When you put it out there, that door is shut. And now you're like, okay, I'm all in. Like I just told all my friends I'm doing this. So now I am really committed to doing it. But that fear of failure will keep you from saying those things and from doing those things. So what if we just attempted things with confidence that even if I fail, like it's part of the process. I'm growing through this. There was a couple of John Maxwell quotes that I had written down about failure. I talk about failure so much that I went back through like my team call notes and just searched the word failure, and I had like 60 entries. And so I was going back through my old notes like, wow, yes, this is something we need to revisit a lot because we're going to fail all the time. It is literally part of the process. But I don't know which book it was from, but from John Maxwell, he said, learning from the losses is the most significant way that we learn. Failure is a great teacher. Success really isn't. Isn't that true? Like when we succeed, when we do something great, what do we learn from it? Not much. Like it feels really good and it's fun, but there's not really any hard lessons learned. But failure is a great teacher. And I think of Thomas Edison, like inventing the light bulb. He tried like over 1,000 times to get it right. And he said, well, I learned 1,000 ways to not make a light bulb. And then the one time, right, obviously he did, and he's famous for inventing it. But what we don't look at is the 1,000 attempts before. Like all of these famous people, like Abraham Lincoln, like got kicked out of school. Like, oh, it's President's Day. That was an appropriate illustration. But like there's so many awesome people that we look at and we just see their success. Like we just see the mountaintop, like Victoria said, but you don't see like the valley they had to trudge through to get there. And every successful person you see has had failure after failure after failure after failure, but they have been resilient through it. And they have had a really high tolerance for failure. I can't tell you how many people we have worked with that maybe they do like a first social media post and they're excited, and then like one rejection or one mean word or one, and they're like, nope, and they're done and they're gone. And it's because their tolerance for failure was so low. And so maybe it's something we need to talk about more. Like, hey, we celebrate failure. We think it's great. It means you are trying. It means you are growing, you are learning. Like this should be a conversation we're having with brand new people and reminding ourselves. Yes, Nicole, telling your daughter about it, right? Like we tell our kids, like, it's okay, you tried, like you don't have to be the best right away, like just try new things, like you have to grow, you have to learn. Like let's have that same compassion for ourselves as well, right? Like be able to look at the thing and laugh like, that bombed, that did not go well, but you know what? I tried. And so I'm excited about it, right? Maybe the first time you do a live video, you're like sweating bullets. Okay. And like your flesh, right? Shannon, how many times have we talked about like the red neck? Like literally Shannon's like, I start to like, tell us about it, Shan.
I remember one of the first times I tried to do a live video. I lived at my dad's house. I'm sitting there for, I'm not even kidding, an hour. I sat there for an hour and I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to hit the button. And I'd be like, no, I'm not. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. Like somebody was going, I don't even know, like I was going to, explode or something from going live. It was ridiculous. And I was like, Brittany, why do I feel like I'm going to die if I hit go live? It was crazy. So yeah.
Yeah. And now like it's no problem, right? You do it all the time. So like your comfort zone stretch, but like your brain tells you like you are going to die if you do this thing, like you're going to die. And it's not reasonable at all. But like you have to remember your brain wants to keep you safe. So you can literally say to yourself, like, thank you, brain. Thank you so much for trying to keep me safe, but I'm good. This isn't going to kill me. Like that fight or flight response. Like, I don't need that right now. This is actually going to help me grow. Like I actually need to embrace the scary thing and do it because I'm growing my comfort zone. And if I fail and it bombs, that's okay. Part of the process, right? Have some compassion on yourself and yeah, give yourself some grace. Shan, I feel like you want to say something else.
I just was going to say something that has really helped me with like when I get nervous to do something is taking the light and the pressure off of myself and saying that like, I'm doing this for all of you, for all the people that are going to watch, for whoever is listening to me. Like, this is not about me. And for some reason, when I say that to myself, I'm like, okay, they don't care what I look like, what I sound like, what I say. It's whether they're going to receive the message or not. Like that's up to them. And it doesn't matter how well I do that, or maybe you're not going to speak to every single person. Like it's not going to be received the same way. You know what I mean? So like you're speaking for that person that needs to hear it, or whatever the thing is that you're doing isn't for yourself. So take the light and the pressure off of yourself and turn it towards everyone else.
Yes, that is great advice because, right, if it's all about me, I'm going to get really wrapped up in my head, right? But when I can remember what my mission is and that I'm doing this for service for others, then that mission supersedes my fear, right? Like it's more important than how I feel about it right now. Like me helping people make income from home is more important than I have fear around sharing the business. Or me helping people get healthy is more important than, oh, I don't know if she's going to like it if I reach out to her. No, the mission is more important. And that will really like shut your brain up and like, just let that fear go. So somehow it's 9 o'clock, guys. So we're going to have to like continue this next time, but I want you to think when you look at the compensation plan, I want you to think this is a discomfort scale. Okay. So where I am right now in my business is how willing I've been to be uncomfortable and to get to that next level of where I want to be, just the next level. Don't look at, where I want to be in 5 years, but just right now, that next level where I want to be, what discomfort do I have to embrace and normalize and see and look at it and say, okay, if I fail, it's part of the process, right? Push that comfort zone. And I really think it's going to unlock something in your brain that helps you get to that next level because you're going to be willing to step out and let's just start normalizing failure. Like, let's shout it out. I tried something, it was terrible, or I feel crazy about it. I sweated bullets doing that live, and we can normalize it. We can encourage each other and talk about it. But think about what those things are. Bomb fail. Yeah. All the bomb gifs are going to be dropping. But what would you attempt to do if you knew you wouldn't fail, right? If that fear of failure is gone, what would you attempt? That's probably the thing that you need to go do. Don't let fear of failure keep you from trying. And let's have a high tolerance for failure because it's fine and it's normal. Okay, guys, any last thoughts before we hop off?
I do want to share something quick. I'm going to get biblical. So at church on Sunday, it's about God's promises and like what we're supposed to be doing. And we always try to resonate with people and make them feel more comfortable by saying, well, God's not going to give you more than you can handle. And we're like, we need to stop saying that because God gives you exactly what he wants you to have in that time to mold you for something greater in the future. So all of those life lessons, but you need to remember, like, he is doing this with you. Like, he's walking alongside of you. He's giving you the tools to get through those hard times and to do those hard tasks to help other people. Yes. And I just like the whole time I was like bawling my eyes out. I'm like, I still need to do like all of these things because he's working with me. He's working with all of you and helping us, become stronger and more bold. So
yes. Great reminder. I love that. That is the perfect thing to end on. Hope you guys are motivated and pumped for the week. Go fail at something and then tell us about it. Love you guys.